Oh, is it on?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
the counting and everything happened. I just didn't tell you that the counting was happening.
well, I'm sorry. I was just doing my own research, but you know what I found out?
What did you find out?
We're in Ybor City. It's Sunday, and that means it's time to jump into the rotation. See, I didn't
Oh,
slam the
oh
table that
shit!
time.
I didn't.
Now start the music.
Right there.
Marijuana in my soul, marijuana in my heart.
Hi.
Okay, we are here
We are.
on a Sunday afternoon.
You're here. I'm here. Keno's over there.
Yeah.
We labeled our cities. You're in Washington D.C. We're in Ybor City.
That is just such cool graphics.
I don't know. I might want to put like Chillum on there. I don't know. I don't want to self promote
Repeatedly, the best CBD dispensary in Tampa.
all day, every day.
Every single day.
And it's run by our fabulous assistant director and my co-host on this, Carlos Angel de Hermida.
Assistant director, brah.
Deputy.
Deputy. Is there a
Deputy
difference?
director.
Deputy.
I ain't nobody's secretary. All right.
That's right. And when they
Yeah.
shoot the director, they did not shoot the deputy.
Yeah.
And that makes you the deputy dog.
Yeah, that means that if anything ever happens to Keno, I gotta step up.
And speaking of Kano, he happens to be in the Beltway, and that is our director, not just
Yeah.
deputy.
He's the executive.
He's the executive director.
The executive director.
Yeah, in his C-suite in the Beltway.
Well, I can tell you here in the DC area, some interesting developments. In July 1st, the state of Virginia, their legalization measures went into effect. And since they legalized marijuana, arrests have dropped 90%. Shocker.
Who would
Just
have
it-
thunk?
Just since July 1st, arrests have dropped 90%. So, I just want to say a big shout out to Virginia Normal, to Jen Michelle, and all the great work that they're doing there. Virginia Normal has really helped give us a great example of what it takes to change public policy. They not only help change the laws to pass adult use, but they also change laws to address whether or not smell is something that police can search your car over, and that's no longer the case. And it's changing laws in other states. Delaware Supreme Court just ruled this week that the smell or odor of marijuana is not enough for a warrantless search by police. So, more and more I see the role of Normal becoming a civil rights and always has been a civil rights organization working to protect the civil rights of cannabis users.
And that's fantastic because because think about it. If you smell ass, it's not necessarily expensive cheese. That's the important thing you need to get when it comes down to what you smell in a car automatically should lead to your arrest. So things aren't always exactly the way it seems. Wouldn't you say it that way?
I mean, my car always smells like ass. So,
Well, you got to stop buying that expensive cheese.
I'm happy, Keno, that you shout out Virginia Normal, but I do have to admit, I was like poking around online. And I saw this meme that they're pushing out, and one of the things that they're so proud of, and they should be, but I'm jealous of, is that they were the first state in the South to legalize marijuana. And we've always been saying like, oh, Florida's like we're fucking moving and we're medical marijuana system. We're the leaders of the marijuana in the South. But I don't know. I guess we got surpassed.
Well, I mean, Florida, we are the third largest market in the country right now, and we're the only of those three states that is medical only. The other two being Colorado and California, of course, are the mixtures, and so therefore they have a lot more. But we are still, even with just a medical program, with approximately 700,000 patients online.
What you said just now just said like what I heard is a lot of patients are paying way too much for marijuana. They're paying way too much for their medical marijuana card. That we're the largest, and we should celebrate from like business terms. I'm the guy that's all about the business and everything. But I mean, it's like a lot of people are getting screwed over because of marijuana. And
Well, and then as somebody who's involved in business and marketing, there's a difference between price and value. Correct?
yes.
I mean, you could spend $10 on something which is worth $10, or you could buy something for $10 that's worth $30. Right now, here in Florida, on the average, we're spending $35 on something which other places is worth $10. Not exactly what we really want, but that is why a lot of people are calling Florida, and this is one of the newest expressions out there, Midsville.
Midsville. That's
Mm.
because our weed sucks.
We're from here to Midtown, and but there are strains coming from companies who do believe in a higher quality product,
Mhm.
and like Cookies and Jungle Boys, which I'm not going to name here because we're not supposed to support anybody who hasn't given us any money. So I didn't say that.
You just did.
Not really.
You said Cookies and Jungle Boy.
See there, that's you get.
That's not.
That,
I
it's
wasn't
on
the
you
first.
then. You said it. I didn't say it.
What is going on right now?
Well, it's called alternate reality. We're into that kind of thing right here in the United States. Somebody has to do something, to say something, and then somebody reads it in the paper. They've done their own research, and all of a sudden, it's real.
Well, I do want to go back to one thing, Carlos, that you mentioned. The difference, the reason why that Virginia has moved ahead of Florida is because they had a change in who controlled their state government. And so Virginia went triple blue a couple years back. And as much as I hate wading into partisan politics, right now it seems to be, that the vast majority of folks in the GOP tend to ally with the prohibitionists. I mean, here in Florida, the GOP legislatures gave reefer madness experts time to talk about THC caps, where they gave folks like us zero time to refute those false claims.
That's right, and Alec Berenson, the fantastic author who gave us such great books as "Tell Your Children," nicknamed after the original name for Reefer Madness, to prove to everybody that cannabis makes kids turn get into psychosis and all that kind of stuff. And you got to love a guy who's done all of his own research wrong. And yet makes a New York Times best-selling book out of it. And then he goes on a tour later on this last year, talking about how COVID is a hoax and how the vaccine was manufactured to make money and to hurt people. So
Okay.
Alec is still at it.
Yeah.
He spoke over at CPAC, and I'm certain he has nice long conversations with Kevin Sabet, another one of our favorites, to discuss what their next moves are to try to flim-flam people out there in regards to how bad cannabis is when it isn't. But one of the things that Kevin had talked about to our good Senator Ray Rodriguez was that there is a new THC in town, and it is 300 times more potent, and it's going to wipe out kids' minds. They're just going to turn them into blank slates.
Really?
I want to try that shit.
I don't think you want to try that shit.
I do want to try that
straight tabula rasa in this bad boy.
I mean, we're talking about everybody smokes it, and then all of a sudden you have a zombie apocalypse.
Whoa. What is this? What is this magical form of THC that he's talking about?
Well, actually, it actually just appeared this last week in a couple of different places, and we're talking about a cannabinoid called THCP, and the P stands for phenol. And for those of you who are into organic chemistry, that means rather than having an aromatic 7-carbon ring or heptyl ring, this has a pentyl ring, which has 5 carbons instead. So it has a couple extra double bonds, so that it actually does fit. It becomes a smaller molecule, and supposedly grabs the CR1 receptors stronger, and therefore it hangs on longer. It takes longer to attack as far as the effects are concerned, and it hangs around for like 2 days. Now,
so the THCP doesn't stand for pretty good weed, just it's a scientific term.
So wait, all right, here's what I'm thinking, right? I've spent a good majority of my life high, right? It's been pretty good. It really has. It hasn't been a bad thing, right? And you're telling me that you got something that will get me higher for longer, and it's bad.
it makes you question, right? But there is a threshold. There is a balance in nature, and if you think about it, if nature created cannabis in a certain way to have certain medicinal effects, and you go in there with your chemistry set, and you go ahead and you change everything around, you pull out a molecule which is at an extremely low level in the plant itself, and multiply the amount that's available in a product by 1,000, which is what they have done. They said they're claiming it takes 1,000 kilograms to create 1 milligram of this stuff.
Mm,
Mm.
And we're talking about hemp.
mm.
It's being derived strictly from hemp. And the people who are working on it also claim that there's no tests for it. So if you're somebody who wants to imbibe and have it test have a totally clean urine when you have to go to the probation office or whatever, here it is. And
Whoa, wait. I'm sorry, Gary, to interrupt, but I just want to, what you just said, just mind blown. You're telling me that scientists have figured out a way to legally derive a cannabinoid from hemp, so you can essentially get it over the counter, that gets you higher longer, and that is untraceable on a drug test, and somehow this is a bad thing?
Wait, you mean untraceable on a drug test, or like HPLC, like testing the amount of
Yeah,
THC that's
help us
in
out
the
with this, Gary.
substance?
okay, I constantly spend too much of my time trying to quell the fears of so many people who are afraid to take the vaccine because it was only tested for 6 months on only 300,000 individuals before it was released to the market,
That
and then put out a million times.
that's
This is
not me though.
no, it's not you, but yeah, here's a product that everybody's saying, well, let's give it a try kind of situation that has had zero testing. We have no idea what the long term effects are. We were, and it is again a molecule which normally is in such small quantity it's almost undetectable in the plant, and you're multiplying it by 1,000.
Oh, it's undetectable in the plant. I thought you meant undetectable by drug screen. I was like,
Well, that
well,
too,
sign us
because
up for that.
well they haven't set up a test for it that actually detects that pentyl ring and things of that sort that allows you to go ahead and find it. Even within somebody's body. They have no idea
Okay.
what's going to
How
happen to it once it gets into the liver. We don't know what kind of isotopes are going to be created.
how
We have zero research on this, and I never had a problem with the fact that there was zero research on the cannabis I was smoking back in the 1980s, because it was in our own mind what they call GRAS, or generally regarded as safe, which is an FDA term, because of the fact that it's been used for thousands of years. But
Wait. The
this,
FDA term for the weed back in your day, Gary, was grass.
yes, as a matter of
they
fact.
came up with that shit?
But
Somebody in the FDA was puffing.
well, but the thing is, they still weren't going to take it off of Schedule 1, because that's where it was set up in the Controlled Substance Act in 1970. But but studies that they had done afterwards said this is generally regarded as safe, and that is what they're doing right now in regards to hemp.
Mm.
They're saying that it's legal because it should be generally regarded as safe.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because this week the Food and Drug Administration and the CDC issued warnings on Tuesday, warning consumers about the potential risk of Delta 8 THC. Now, Carlos, you sell Delta 8. You had a big article this week in Creative Loafing about the Canagars that you're selling at Chillum. So tell us a little bit more about safe Delta 8, which I know you aspire to make sure that you're selling safe products. So tell us more about what you do.
So here's the FDA had like 5 reasons why Delta 8 could be considered like harmful. And there were some, so you read through these reasons and you kind of get a general regard that, first off, I think like the first reason is that like the FDA has not, deemed it as safe, right? Like they haven't looked at
It's
it.
not grass.
Yeah. Well, no. It's that they haven't looked at it. It's even like they came out with hemp, with this rule for hemp itself. They're like, we're not going to say that this product is something that we're going to stand by, but it's generally regarded as safe. You guys could sell it. You just guys have to, follow these specific rules, right? So like I believe, okay, so I'm gonna have to pull this shit up, but
Pull this shit up, Paul.
so
Carlos.
FDA rules on.
Oh, by the way, Chris, while he's doing that, I found the best little Dominican place that sells air fried foods. It's in the new Tampa Mall on Bush Boulevard. So when you come back, you guys got to go here and check that out. Really is good stuff, and it's not oily or anything.
Well,
Okay,
funny you should say that, Gary. My wife has recently got into making tostones in the air fryer. So air fried fritura sounds very delicious and healthy.
So she's been frying your tostones, huh?
Ah,
Yeah, she got an air frying recipe, and I'm trying to put them in the air fryer, so they're not getting deep fried. All right, so I see your link
so
here, Carlos.
so
All right.
I'm dropping the link in the chat, and I'm gonna post it
Good segue.
to the bottom here.
Next, we got to work
Um,
on infused empanadas.
So the FDA posted to their website, fda.gov, right? Five things to know about Delta 8, right? Delta 8 THC has serious health risks.
Yes.
And there's five reasons basically why they would say that Delta 8 has serious health risks. First reason,
Number one.
Delta 8 THC products have not been evaluated or approved by the FDA for safe use and may be marketed in ways that put the public health at risk.
So because we haven't done the research,
Eh.
you can't try it yet. It's kind of like the FDA's mission, isn't it?
Well, they're not necessarily saying that they can't try it, are they? Like they're just saying like, hey, if you try it, we're washing our hands here. We're not saying it's good. We're not saying it's bad, right? We're just haven't evaluated it.
Based on FDA rules and regulations, the only thing you have right to try is when you're considered terminal. Based on the law that was created about 2 years ago.
I really,
I would hate to be at that particular
like,
point.
I really have like a lot of like beef with the FDA now, apparently, like for deeper reasons.
I actually like
just
Scott
this
Gottlieb,
article.
to be honest with you.
All
I
right.
mean, he was giving things a critical eye, but he was also tied legislatively.
Reason number 2, Gary. The FDA
Reason number 2.
received adverse events reports involving Delta 8 THC containing products.
Okay.
So, and there's some stats I want to go over considering this, right? So the FDA received adverse event reports. Adverse event reports are events that are reported by consumers or doctors, hospitals, things like that.
Or law enforcement.
Or law enforcement, right? These are events where, and here's the thing: adverse events, and it says directly underneath, include vomiting, hallucinations, trouble standing, and loss of consciousness. So it seems to me that these adverse events just seem to be people that got too stoned and don't know what to do.
That is the problem with
Right.
what is called self-reporting.
Mm.
If a doctor doesn't evaluate you at that point, they have to take your word for it. And in some cases, and it does happen, especially with the vaccine, that people just report total bullshit.
Mm. Mm. Yeah,
Well,
and
it
like
says,
even if like there's some of these stats that talk about, I'm sorry, Kano, but like how the percentage of these people that are pediatric patients, right, less than 18 years of age, or 39%, unintentional exposure. So a lot of these are like kids and pets getting into your Delta 8 and eating it, and you're like, oh my god, I don't know what to do, my baby. And you take the kid to the hospital, and the doctor tells the mom, like, just give him some Cheetos in an Arizona iced tea can. I prescribe the munchies, and that's the end of it. At worst, they get their stomach pumped. At worst. All right. Anything else, Gary? You got something there?
Well, again,
You look like you got something to say, brah.
well, again, the thing about self-reporting is the results have to be corroborated, and if they're not corroborated, then they can't guarantee that those events even happened at all. And the second thing they have to do with any adverse effect is see if it's actually tied to the product itself and not something else that was happening at that time. I mean, if you went out and you bought a box of 12 Twinkies and knocked that down, and then smoked a joint, and all of a sudden you gained 15 pounds and said, oh my God, this cannabis makes me gain 15 pounds. You have to consider, all the circumstances.
But again, these are situations that, my kid ate my gummy. That's something that they're verifying. What do you say? Collaborated? Coagulated?
Corroborated.
Right?
There's a lot of C's involved here. Corroboration, causation, and correlation.
And the doctor, maybe I'm like giving a romantic timeline about Arizona iced tea prescription, but I mean, the doctor is saying to these people, you're just a little too high, man. You just need to calm down. Like that's essentially what happens.
Yes, get a grip.
Yeah, it essentially is what happens. Come on now, right?
All right. So now we're in number 4.
And we're in number 3, which is obvious here. Delta 8 THC has psychoactive and intoxicating effects. Just the fact that it gets you stoned they're against it, right?
Yeah.
And let's bear in mind the FDA. We talked about the FDA and hemp, but let's talk about the
These are the guys
FDA
that
and
approved Adderall for pediatric use,
let's
right?
fuck all that, all right? Let's just talk about weed. Let's just talk about cannabinoids. What they do with weed?
Well, they both get you high.
Okay, thank you. Delta 8 THC products often involve. Okay, this is an important one, and this is the one that we need to talk about seriously because this is extremely important. Delta 8 THC products often involve use of potentially harmful chemicals to create the concentrations of Delta 8 THC claimed in the marketplace.
Mm.
Right. So, right, the process of Delta 8 THC being made. I don't know. I think Gary here should talk about that for a second. How
Oh,
does
how Delta 8 is made?
yeah, how does that go down?
You basically acidify hemp, and the CBD automatically starts getting converted to Delta 8, which is normally in very low concentrations, but it increases the concentration because it increases the transition or the reaction. The problem is we don't know how many other isomers are created at the same time as just the Delta 8 when you acidify the THCA.
Mm,
And also, again, we don't know what Delta 8 does in the liver when it's at that concentration. So those are the things they're concerned about, but they have been doing research on that.
mm, mm. And your puppy's trying to get a hold of you there, Kenna.
I know it.
So so what we're talking about here is the process of changing CBD, right? It's Delta 8 originally is CBD. You got to change CBD into Delta 8. So you add an acid to it, right?
Yep.
And it converts the Delta 8 molecule, right? And then the process here is then isolating that cannabinoid, right? And that taking that cannabinoid out of all of these harmful chemicals, because that's essentially what happens. You have this mixture here that has acid in it, and there's also all of these other what do you call them?
Isomers.
Isomers, right? That we don't really understand and could be potentially harmful, right? And quite honestly, I mean, if it's coming from out of the fucking acid, there might be some harmful isomers in there. I mean, you can't deny that. But the process is that we got to remove the delta 8 THC from this. So we basically make a distillate from this mixture, right?
Yeah, let's be clear. In the 19
If
go ahead.
this process is not done properly, you can hurt somebody.
Yep.
Right? You can seriously hurt somebody. Here's the thing: being in Florida, the Department of Agriculture, right,
And consumer services.
and Consumer Services has been regulating hemp for quite some time now. When Delta 8 first started coming out, they were very quick to talk about it. They're very quick to say that how they're going to regulate it. They regulate it specifically the way that CBD products that are consumed are regulated, right? So I have had the Department of Agriculture come into my shop because they know that a certain batch for certain products have come up with harmful chemicals, right? These people are out there, they're testing it, they're regulating it. We're fortunate enough in Florida to have a governing body that looks after us and tries to make sure that these companies are doing the right thing, right? Do they get everything? Probably not, right? Are there bad players in Florida? Yeah, there probably are. But we fortunately do have that governing body here.
And not just Florida, because you actually you can do interstate commerce with CBD products, and so
Yes.
therefore you're not just getting products that are made in Florida; they're made in BF Arkansas or in California or any place else where they decide to have put a lab. And the question is a lab a legitimate lab, like something as bright and sparkly as Acacia, where everything is clean and bright and everything is totally legit, or was it made in somebody's basement in their bathtub?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I find it interesting this point here that the FDA and CDC are saying, manufacturing of Delta 8 may occur in uncontrolled or unsanitary settings. And
That's what they're talking about.
And looking at the pictures that I've seen from corporate grows here in Florida, or there in Florida, I mean, corporate booth is made in unsanitary and unsafe settings, and they sell that to medical patients at various dispensaries around the state, at over 100 dispensaries.
Yeah.
You know?
And you're not going to name any MMTCs in particular, but it is interesting that, like, for instance, here most concentrates, when they're made properly, are kind of like an ochre yellow color, correct? So if you see
Amber.
amber, So if you see a concentrate that is like green or orange,
Or
uh,
just straight
it,
up tar.
yeah, it's possible that it's not quite exactly the product you think it is.
Yeah. No, I mean, we've been going through this with medical marijuana for quite some time. We've been going through this with hemp, believe it or not, for quite some time. There's people out there that fucking fuck it up.
Yeah.
That's it. There are people out there that are greedy. They're not in it for the right reasons. All that, all that fucking shit. Like they just mess up the industry.
And they're
And
typically from South Florida. They're from that SoFlo region.
We're not going to name names because they know who they are.
No, but let's be real. Every time we have a new designer drug crisis, it's always Broward, Palm Beach, and Dade counties that are at the core of the damn problem.
That like ate that guy's face off and then like jumped off the highway in Miami.
Or it's that space in between Gainesville and Tampa where they have all the rural counties. You have citrus and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there too.
I didn't know they had synthetic drug problems in Waldo, but
No, not Waldo. We're talking about on the West Coast. On the what was it? The Emerald Coast, I guess they call it. The Treasure Coast. I forget which coast it is.
Space.
I just coast through Florida. I don't know.
I like the fact that we're the Sun Coast.
Yeah, we're the Sun Coast. They're the Space Coast versus the Emerald Coast. I guess is the underside of the Panhandle, right? Although I think if it's the Emerald Coast, it shouldn't be a place that is heavy in meth. It should be heavy in cannabis. But I degrade.
Oh, my headphones fell off.
That's the way it works.
I got like really worked up about the Delta 8 stuff, guys. I'm sorry.
I can tell.
It's good, man. I think we need to talk
move
about
my
this
chair, actually.
Well, I would say this much: trust in the FDA and is now translated into the CDC is at an all-time low. Prior to my graduation in my master's program, I'll never forget my professor coming to me and saying, "Chris, if you really want to make money with your master's in public administration, go work for the FDA." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because the same companies that you regulate will pay you millions of dollars to write white papers for favorable reviews of their products. And then those quote you as an FDA, like scientist or regulator, to give credence to it, which is why you see these commercials on TV for these drugs. They say, ask your doctor about this drug. And then they say real fast all the side effects may cause anal leakage and suicidal thoughts."
Yeah, well, the problem is if you work for the FDA, they own all the products of your work. And so therefore, if you go out and put out a product of your own without their approval, you will lose that job.
Dang.
If you work for the military and you created a new product that is like a new hypersonic signal that knocks people's socks off, they own the patent, not you. If you work for the military,
I don't want to
that is part of working for the government.
I don't want to go off on the FDA anymore, but I do want to say this. Like, I got really worked up about the Delta 8, and I get really worked up about hemp and everything and being my business and all. But, all this shit would just be fucking over if they just fucking legalized marijuana.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Carlos, because the Cannabis Opportunity Administration Act, that's the Senate bill, which will essentially remove cannabis from the Schedule 1, gives regulatory powers to the FDA. And that's something to be concerned about, because if the FDA is producing stuff like this right now, what are they going to say about cannabis when it's no longer a controlled substance? And how is that going to affect state level markets?
Because that's the thing though, is like corporate cannabis is already taken over. So once it's like legalized, I would say they just fucking bribe the FDA, and all of a sudden they're giving out favorable reviews on True Leaves product.
Well, let's talk about the word controlled substance.
Interesting. I mean, Carlos, are you saying that True Leaf would ever be involved in a government bribery? Never.
I'm not saying all that. I'm saying that they're the Walmart of weed.
They are the Walmart of weed. Walmart of weed.
I'm sure Walmart bribes the FDA.
We make the best Korean-made stuff made in the USA.
I'm sure the FDA bribes, or Walmart bribes the FDA for something. There's something they do that they got to bribe the FDA for.
Having worked in Tallahassee, I can say that there
eventually will.
there are several different revenue streams that occur in Tallahassee, some of which have more effect than others on particular bills and votes. And but the thing is, we do have an
Money.
industry. Well, government also has checks and balances too. That is why so many of the bills that were absolutely insane on their surface and insane farther in too are now being challenged in the courts
It's like
as they're being implemented.
it's really hard to balance your checks in government.
Now, of course, if you change the
Get it?
court system
Money.
so that the people who are there are going to be doing your bidding, then that's one less checks and balances that you've got, so you can go ahead and continue being corrupt. Now, Chris, you've heard the story of why Tallahassee is the capital, not Orlando, right?
Yeah, I mean, because back in the old days, it was halfway between Jacksonville and Pensacola, and everything south of Gainesville was Spanish Florida.
Right. But then they found out that as long as Tallahassee was the capital and not Orlando, which was becoming a population center, then it was easier to do things that were on the corrupt side and have less of the state know about it, especially before social media and
Oh,
and when somebody blinks in Tallahassee, somebody farts in Miami, the kind of thing about it.
Mm.
that's what happened, Gary. I'm sorry. I fucked up the show. We're 11 minutes late for the G spot. But I got so pissed about the Delta 8 stuff. And we haven't even talked about, regular Florida. But yeah, so Gary, what
Yes.
what time is it, buddy?
Spot. And the G stands for go do your own research because I don't feel like doing it right now. No, I was actually thinking of a better title. It's kind of like giving out clarity or something along those lines because that's basically what we need on
You
it.
should just call it Clarity. Clarity News with Gary Stein.
Clarity News. Hey, okay, well, that works out too. Although some people like the G spot thing, I just happen to be not one of them.
Do people like that? I don't think anybody likes that. I mean, the real one, yeah, but the Dame G
G
spot
spot
or
on.
a news segment, I don't think anybody likes that.
G spot. Yeah, do a poll to see if people like it or not. In the meantime,
What?
today G stands for generic.
All right.
Okay. I grew up in the legitimate drug culture because my father was a pharmacist. And I remember back in the 70s, his big thing he was railing on was the fact that they were at the advent of generic drugs, when suddenly more than just the people who created the drug itself were going to be able to make copies of it and sell it at a lower price than those people who had made the name brands. And people could only have access to that name brand as exclusivity for 7 years. And at that point in time, he said, this is the beginning of the end. People are going to be buying drugs that are nothing but placebo because these generic drug companies are unregulated, and therefore we're going to have products out there that are just not up to snuff. And I asked him to explain himself because I had a couple of classes where I had to explain some of these topics in general. I figured, all right, I have an in here. And basically, what he was saying was that if you have a whole bunch of different companies making the same product, each one of them will make it slightly different. And if you're talking about medicine, and pharmacists are asked the questions, what will this medicine do for me? And uniformity is the key to knowing exactly whether a drug is efficacious and safe or not. Because if you have 6 different brands with 6 different cannabinoid profiles, 6 different uh, terpene profiles, then you're not getting the same product each time. So therefore, it shouldn't even be called that. So that is basically what he was going at in regards to the big pharma aspect of it. And I'm not going to agree with anything in regards to Kevin Sabet is concerned because he works very heavily with big pharma, and he for some odd reason has a doctorate, and he's the only doctor who at the Department of Health over at at the University of Florida, rather the Department of Medicine. He's not really a brilliant man, but he does know how to push the big pharma line. And he's always been saying, if this is medicine, then we have to be able to put it into a bill with an exact dose and things of that sort. That is not the way the plant was built in the first place. And so therefore we're at kind of a juncture as to is is it true that if somebody has a particular strain that anybody else can have that, and there's no regulation involved? So how can somebody say, well, this particular Hong Kong strain will be good for your migraines or your thing of that sort, if a Hong Kong strain from one MMTC is totally different from the Hong Kong strain from another. And that's all about
Interesting.
brands. And that is what we're dealing with right now when it comes to multi-state organizations, is that each of these companies come with their own brand of a product that's built on a particular strain. And the thing is, they have to be able to back up their claims.
Mm.
That is how a medical program does work.
So,
Well,
But it doesn't have to be in pill form. It
here,
just doesn't have to
here's
be
the
given to
thing
big
that
pharma.
there. What I know about cannabis genetics is there's over 1,000 different genetic possibilities.
yeah.
I think it's so. I mean, what you're proposing is to be so exact, it's almost impossible.
Well, and that is just it. Cannabis doesn't fit that mold per se,
Yeah,
because of the fact that each person's endocannabinoid system is unique to them.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
another thing.
There's
Holy
that.
shit.
And if you're somebody who smokes 4 ounces a week, and Chris, you know who I'm talking about, they generally have a higher tolerance than those people for whom a 1 gram pre roll will last them an entire week.
Wait, it's you smoke 4 ounces a week, or were you look, or
No, I
you
did
were
not say that. But if you want to go ahead and make that implication,
or
I did not imply it because you did.
you and your wife smoke 4 ounces a week.
I don't know about 4 ounces. That's
Yo,
a lot of
I
money.
don't know. I don't know about Cano, but I would definitely believe that your wife smokes 4 ounces.
Look, I would say this much in regards to um, the current regulatory models that we have are going to have to change if they do want to regulate cannabis, because to the point that Carlos just touched on about genetics, you can grow. Let's just throw something out there. For example, a strain like Gorilla Glue, right? Let's say you grow that somewhere in one state, and then you grow it in another state, same exact genetics, but the environmental conditions can actually change the final product that you have too, and the final cannabinoids, and also how the different growers in the different states are treated. I mean, you can take some great Gorilla Glue from Cali that has the same genetics as the Gorilla Glue grown by some of these MMTCs here in Florida, and then you're wondering why the stuff here in Florida, it could have mold, it could have pesticides, it could have a lower THC count than the stuff that you're getting from Cali, and it's the same exact genetic profile.
I think it needed. I think what we're trying to get to is somewhat possible. Like the fact that what Gary brought up about everybody having their own separate endocannabinoid system, and they react to differently to everything is a very good fucking point. But I do think that instead of thinking in terms of strains, we should just think levels. We should think for headaches we need this amount of limonene, and this amount of
Ah,
CBD and THC.
And what you're
And
talking about is standards.
yes, there we go.
That
Thank
is
you.
what we need, and that's what I was getting at. Because the whole fear of generic drugs back in the 1970s eventually went away, because there was a standard put in place that said if you got a capsule of erythromycin and it was tested, it had to have the standard, even if it was a generic, of having just this much erythromycin in it, and the fillers had to be A, B, C, D, and E. With those standards, it therefore goes from a prohibited substance to a controlled substance, and that's what they call it. They call it a controlled substance as opposed to a prohibited substance back in Schedule 1, because of the fact that they feel that if it's properly regulated, there may be a use for it, and therefore it's easier to categorize once you have standards in place saying this particular medication has to have this, and this in these particular levels. How it reacts to a person is different. I mean, big pharma is big on this. There are antihistamines that make some people drowsy as hell. Give them to a kid and you peel them off the ceiling for the rest of the day, like they just had, a pound of sugar put into their cereal.
mm.
But that is something that the big pharma has been dealing with for a while. If you look at any kind of package, it'll talk about the different side effects that can happen with any kind of medication. And then when they talk about common side effects, sometimes you're talking about something that happens 10% or 5% of the time, and the rare ones anywhere between one in a million to 1 in 10,000, things of that sort. Because the larger the population, the more chance there is for variance in regards to the effect. And a particular medication may have a deleterious effect that happens one of a million people, but if that particular one out of a million happens to be fatal, they will pull it off the market. because you don't even want to take that much of a chance. And the question is at that point in time is at what level is a side effect enough to pull it off the market? And that is what the FDA does when they talk about a controlled substance. They want to control the standard of it to make certain that it is exactly what it's supposed to be.
I know you're just talking about like FDA definitions, but it's just bothering me. I just want to point out that a prohibited substance is indeed a controlled substance, but not by FDA standards.
Well,
Well,
Sorry,
there,
sorry,
there, there,
I threw
well,
you off
there's
your
levels
thing
of
there.
control. There's levels of control. There's control one, control two, control three.
Uh,
If you look on packages, you'll see a C with a Roman numeral in the middle of it,
really?
and that'll tell you at what level of controlled substance it is.
No shit. I didn't know that.
Absolutely.
well,
So
regardless of where the federal legalization lands, upcoming in 2022, there's going to be a lot of state ballot initiatives that could really change the landscape of what cannabis looks like in this country.
I guess the first question I have about the ballot initiatives is, will it actually get to the ballot?
Well, in Arkansas, they're working towards a legalization initiative. They need to gather 89,000 signatures by July of 2022, and that will allow adults to legally purchase 4 ounces of marijuana and grow 12 plants at home. Now, Arkansas is definitely another state in the South, so that's forward progress. But here's one, Gary, that might shock you. Idaho has 2 initiatives, and Idaho really is the last state to fall, in this row of dominoes. They're working with collecting signatures for a depenalization ballot initiative, which would allow adults to possess up to 3 ounces on private property without any criminal penalties. And then they're also pushing for a medical marijuana initiative, which will allow medical patients to grow up to 6 plants. They need 65,000 signatures for that by May of 2022. So just to see that these really states in the deep South and states out there in the mountains, which have been, some of the holdouts for prohibition, finally, active pushing through, we should see some changes. Even Nebraska on the ballot, but they need to collect
And
126.
Nebraska, Idaho, and Kansas are the last 3 states that still at this point in time do not have any level of cannabis legalization that includes CBD or low THC cannabis, except for the stuff that came out of the Farm Act, but they still kind of suppress that. But Idaho, the land of the spuds, they had already decided that a long time ago that they were not going to get this through legislatively. It would have to be done by a ballot initiative. And I guess at that point in time, you have to rely on your legislature to put together a process for ballot initiatives that makes it easier. In California, I think it's far too lax. This whole concept of what happened with this recall measure shows that the bar was far, far too low, because the guy won by a landslide the first time. They went ahead and spent 1/3 of $1 billion on an election to come up with the exact same conclusion. Just shows to show you that the bar was far too low. But in Florida right now, the bar is too high, and we're happy to hear that Regulate Florida was down but not out, and they have just come up with their newest version. Regulate 22 is out now, and the petition is out, but they're going to have to get one hell of a lot of signatures, and a lot more than they got last time.
Yeah, what is it now? It's like 800,000.
It's over 800,000 signatures, but you have to get at least 80,000 signatures just to get to the Supreme Court, where they got knocked out last time. But the good thing about going to the Supreme Court and getting knocked out is you know exactly where they're thinking now and know what you can change to make things better, which is what they're working on right now as far as Regulate is concerned. They fixed those glitches that the Supreme Court was able to point to and knock it down and remove those. And that's exactly what happened with Amendment 2 in 2014 versus Amendment 2 in 2016. They learned the first time. However, if the makeup of the court changes, sometimes their opinion will change as well. And that is something else we have to deal with. The fact right now we still have a guy in office in the governor's mansion who does some kind of cray things, including putting people into the Supreme Court who may be far too far to the right to make a totally unbiased opinion. I think that is basically what we're dealing with right now. And we don't know if things are going to change to get even worse in the next couple of years. That even if they change the ballot initiative, will the opinions of the Supreme Court change as well? Now, Idaho, the good people over in South Dakota, the people who brought you that giant biker rally that's now gotten 300,000 cases out of it, Also have their fantastic governor, Christy Nome, that's Gnome. For those people who don't know how to spell it incorrectly. And basically, what happened was they voted on an initiative, and the levels of that they were able to get legislative to get it on the ballot were met. The number of people who voted for it, that level was met, and then after it was met, then they sent it back to the Supreme Court, who then said it was not legal, and so
Mm.
therefore they knocked it down after the people voted for it, which is I hate to tell you guys, but South Dakota is as backwards. It's
Hey,
just that's just my opinion. Those people who like Mount Rushmore, you be you.
so you said that the glitches that they fixed the glitches. What were the glitches?
Uh, well, in that particular instance, in South Dakota,
No. Regulate Florida. Regulate Florida. Regulate Florida,
all
please.
right.
I don't want to talk about Idaho or any other state but Florida right now. What were regulate Florida's glitches?
Uh, all right. Well, they it was a very long document. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And there are a lot of pieces they were able to knock off.
Uh,
It was
That made it
6
difficult.
pages, Gary. 6 pages. The
Yeah, it was
previous one.
it was a 6 page document, and there was a lot of meat to pour through to find the errors in there. And
uh,
they found a couple, and we'll go over it in more depth next week when I've had a chance to study the ballot, and it's even better. I'm still going to go ahead and sign it. I believe it should be in the hands of the voters. So if you get that petition, damn it, sign it. Don't sign it Mickey Mouse. Don't sign it Superman like you guys did with the MILF petition, because that really did kind of backfire. You might have not liked it, but you should at least have given the voters a chance to vote on it.
Kano, did you read the new Regulate Florida petition yet?
I did. I read it over last night, and
Uh,
I think that one of the key differences in the new one, taking lessons that they learned from their Supreme Court review, is that this new Regulate Florida petition does not create any type of regulated adult use market. It is strictly a petition that legalizes marijuana and allows for home grows. So anything having to do with a regulated market will be left up to the legislature, but it does allow for the existing, MMTC structures to essentially sell adult use cannabis.
well,
So that's
one
kind of the
thing
takeaways that I see.
one thing about what you said I want to bring up, and I think Gary will find this interesting if he hasn't read this part yet, is that it does leave a lot to the legislator for a regulate market, except for one thing, and that's the amount of THC allowed in cannabis.
I love
Right.
that.
So that was fucking awesome. I loved that. Like, absolutely love that, because the headache that we get every time the legislative season comes around for this 10% cap is unbearable. And Gary stresses out about it quite a bit,
Oh,
not
absolutely.
necessarily about the actual thing passing, but about how much time we waste over this damn percentage caps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because in the long run, the level of THC is not as important as they knock it out to be, and yet there's still a threshold you do want to meet in regards to the amount of THC that you have.
Mhm.
Now, for some reason, people tend to equate the value of a particular product based on the amount of THC per dollar that you get. That's what they talk about in regards to the value is concerned.
Yeah.
But there could be products out there with 16% THC with a fantastic terpene profile that'll actually do better for you than something which is 24% THC and don't have the proper terpene profile to navigate that product exactly where it needs to go in your body,
Mm.
the way that it affects the receptors and things of that sort. And so we need to be cognizant of the fact that THC value percentage in and of itself is not the end all, but
Mm.
it is definitely part of the equation, and it definitely has thresholds involved. And to say less than 10%, I mean, it really does cut out a wide variety of strains that are needed for particular things. They have to have at least that much in it, or as much as 15 to 20% to do what it has to do.
What did you say earlier? The standards for we have to have different like standards for the
I mean,
percentage
well,
of
like for instance,
terpenes and stuff,
when we had gas shortage,
but we
they
can't
started adding
limit
ethanol.
it.
When they had gas shortage, they started adding ethanol into gas, saying, "Don't worry, it'll be the exact same thing, only be cheaper." Well, the question is, was it really? A lot of times, a lot of engines got messed up with ethanol when it wasn't properly changed for it. and things of that sort. So you have to be careful when you mess with Mother Nature, kind of thing.
All right. Yeah.
Well, so a lot of folks in the chat here are wondering what's the plant count allowed under this new Regulate Florida petition. And it says here that each household member may cultivate up to 9 live marijuana plants. If there are more than 2 adults in the household, the maximum total shall be 18 total live plants, regardless of how many adults. Now, each household member may cultivate up to 9 plants with up to 6 female marijuana plants in the flowering stage at a time, with the balance of any live marijuana plants in the vegetative stage. So you get 9 plants max. You can have up to 6 in flowering, with another 3 in the vegetative stage. And male plants shall not be included in your total and will only count as vegetative stage plants. Hermaphroditic marijuana plants bearing any female flowers shall be included in your flowering stage total. So I think
So
that
I think there's pros and cons here.
So you're talking about like transplants?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. For those who don't know, hermaphroditic plants oftentimes occur when you have let your plant last too long in the flowering stage, and they end up, because flowering is part of the marijuana plant's reproductive cycle. So basically, it's an old horny plant saying, "Oh my God, I'm not going to get pregnant," so it impregnates itself.
No, there's definite pros and cons to what you guys are talking with the whole plant count things, and like it definitely is going to be in our constitution. And we just talked about how we shouldn't level the percentage of THC.
Yeah.
We also shouldn't limit the amount of plants that we should grow. But here's the pro here: it also makes sure that we're able to grow.
Yeah.
Which we're not currently able to do. And it ensures that people that can't afford these large prices are going to be able to grow. Do you guys think, like, if this amendment passes, right, do you think the price of marijuana in Florida would drop or go up?
Okay. We have to talk about the tax structure that might be put in place.
Okay, yeah,
And
that's
if it's not addressed in the petition, they will address it in the legislature, and we could get anything from what they're doing in Illinois and Oregon, which the sales taxes, the ad valorem tax goes up to what 48%. Plus, they have an excise tax that growers have to pay as well. So that drives the price up automatically just from the regulatory side.
Yeah. Well, there's some more questions coming in about where folks can grow, and I'm glad that they mentioned this because it says it, clearly here in the amendment. It's outlined: cultivation must take place indoors in a lockable area with marijuana plants not visible or accessible to the public, or outside in an enclosed lockable structure with marijuana plants not visible or accessible to the public. So you have the option to grow it outdoors as long as you can lock it, and you can grow it indoors as long as you can lock it up, and that no one who's actually working on the plants is under the age of 21. So sorry, you can't have a home garden growing with your kids. That's just not going to happen.
And how would they?
how would they know that?
How would they regulate that? How would
Exactly.
they be able to verify that?
One thing that this doesn't do is allow for the selling of plants to each other. So, you were just talking about taxes, Gary. The taxes don't really, come into effect in regards to regulate Florida right here. That would be something that would be left up to the state legislature. What this does is allow for personal use, allows for personal possession, allows you to transport it. So, I mean, all in all, if you're transporting 6 marijuana plants in your car and you get pulled over, as long as you're under that 9 plant count and you're transporting them to another place, I don't see any criminal penalties. So I think this is it's a good start. I mean, to Carlos's point, it leaves a lot to be said, when we're letting the politicians fill in the blanks. And to some hardcore libertarians and constitutionalists, this might not meet the muster. But for the vast majority of us, it allows us to grow it indoor or outdoors. It allows us to grow plants. It allows us to have it. I think a lot of people will support this.
I think regardless of whether or not you think it's good, what Gary pointed out right when we first started talking about this is that we should sign it. We should have this up for a vote.
Yeah, let the people decide.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely, and hopefully they do their own research with reputable sources.
This show is the only reputable source in the state of Florida.
That's right. You can feel free to reference us. My name is Ibid, IBID. That's my name. That's my name on all the papers I've ever written.
Well, Carlos, why don't you?
I also use the pen name et al. as well.
Carlos, why don't you drop the link there? There we go. So, folks, look, download it, print it out, sign it, and mail it in to Regulate Florida. Help them get to where they need to get to. I was one of the regional organizers for United for Care back in 2015 when we were working to get it on the 2016 ballot. And I recall the summer of 2015, spending all July, August, September, sweating my balls off, 16 hours a day working to get petitions for folks, for a measly $400 every 2 weeks. So I can tell you that, and that was with a majorly funded initiative. That's one where John Morgan was putting in millions of dollars into it. You had, big campaign managers like Ben Palera out there pushing it. And so Regulate Florida as a PAC, as an organization, does not necessarily have the resources that United for Care had. So that's why, they're asking folks to print it out and mail it in to help with this initial first batch. I mean, obviously, there'll be volunteer events where folks can come out and get it signed. But all in all, it is going to take a massive grassroots effort to get 1 million signatures essentially by the end of the year, because you want to have them ready and get them verified in time to meet the muster for the Supreme Court and also to get on the ballot for
it's got to be done in fucking 3 months.
I mean, so February 1st is February 1st of 2022 is the deadline for Supreme Court review to be on the ballot for the following November.
Yeah, and they waited a year for their Supreme Court review after it was already granted, actually a year and a half.
That's 200,000 petitions a month. Right?
Yeah, that's 50,000 a week.
Yeah, and MILF was able to do it through this massive mail campaign, and they still fell short, in part because of the people who are actually filling out false petitions and having to have them canceled. So
I don't want to necessarily blame that. I mean, you're going to get bad petitions.
It was a factor, not the factor.
Yeah, you're going to get bad petitions regardless, right? Like signatures might not match, and you have some supervisor of elections who are real petty about your signature matching. I mean, I've been turned away at the polls because my signature didn't match. Then I was like, okay, wait a minute. I need to sign it exactly how I signed my driver's license 10 years ago in order to be able to vote. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of factors that go into play in this. Folks who sign it and they're not even registered to vote, they're going to toss those out too.
Yeah, and let's be clear. There's also one session between here and February. Well, actually, that's when it starts. But they could still pass a bill this next session that could change the ballot initiative process again.
Oh yeah, they can make it harder. That's a fair assessment, Gary. So all in all, folks, we got from now to December, essentially to the end of December, the end of the year, to push and get Regulate Florida over the top. But it is going to take a massive grassroots effort. It's going to take people paying attention right now because we've already lost this summer. Like I said before, United for Care had, one, they had already been on the ballot before. And so they had a whole database of people. And then they had the funding. So, Regulate Florida is definitely going to need help. They're going to need money. So folks who want to donate, they're going to have to do that as well. But it is going to be an uphill battle. Let's not take this for granted in any way, shape, or form. That even though it is a good initiative, is it actually going to make the difference? It's going to take the people to push it over the top.
Well, we need to take a look and see what happened in 2014 with the First Amendment too. Part of the problem was their marketing. They had their very first television commercial to go ahead and spread this far and wide at Halloween, a few days before the actual election, where almost 2/3 or maybe even 3/4 of all the absentee ballots had already been sent in. And a lot of people didn't get a chance to even get to see it. So marketing is key to making sure this is done right. I remember that our good friend Bob Plathorn had said there are some billboards you should be using right now to promote this, and they didn't. They had that opportunity. They were inexpensive. The guy is an old pitch man, so he knows how this goes. Yeah, I know, Bob, you're watching, so you know what we're talking about.
Well, I think, Gary, also part of the problem with 2014 is that in the news media, they started to shape it up as a battle between Grady Judd and Florida sheriffs and the status quo versus John Morgan. and the patients seem to get left out in the discussion, and that's one of the reasons why Carlos and I founded this chapter of Normal, because we felt as though in 2014 patients were being left out of the discussion, and it was becoming more about political personalities.
And that is the way it happens. I mean, we do vote for personalities as opposed to policies. And I'm not saying that I am OG, but I do get these flyers every once in a while from AARP, which reminds people that that they need to vote the policy, not the person. And yet we are constantly voting on the personality of our legislators. Of course, if they did, Anthony Sabatini would never get elected, but that's besides the point.
And I want to remind people to join Suncoast Normal.
What a great segue. That absolutely has no connection, but it works for me.
You said that you wanted to remind people, so I remind
Yes.
you.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Remind.
I'm allowed to remind people too. And I just, want to remind people to become members of our wonderful group.
Because signing the petition is not going to be enough. We also have to have some legislative pressure to make certain that ballot initiative process is easier to get through than it is right now. And of course, we need to start working on all the other things. We need to fix the medical program as well, such as patient protection, employee protection, reciprocity. If we get federally legal cannabis this year, which is not going to happen, if we had it and they use the COA's process in regards to that, the states are still allowed to put in their own rules. The only thing that the states would not be in total control of would be interstate commerce, right? And the problem is, if you don't have reciprocity in your state and you do have interstate commerce, people can bring product into your state, but they can't use it here. And so that's going to cause all sorts of regulatory issues in regards to who has legal product, who has illegal product, et cetera, because we're having that problem right now with stuff that's being smuggled in from California because they have a huge product mix out there. So you need to get legislatively involved, and that is one of the things that we at Suncoast Normal as a 501c4 do. And so therefore, you join us, you join the movement. We don't have to expect to see your treasure. We hope to see your talent and your time as well, because we need to get this done. And then people power is the strength of our nation. So join for us, a mere $25. And what do we get for $25?
You get a membership card, gold leaf lapel pin that you got. Let me take this down so you can see that better. Hold on.
There you go.
Okay, hold on.
I'll keep trying. There you go. Anyways,
there we go.
There it is. It's right there.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
And my shirt which says "Get the facts and get the vaccine."
Yeah, and you get exclusive access to some of our awesome events that we have. This year, despite the pandemic, we still were able to hold some socially responsible events. We had the best blunt in the Bay rolling competition in April. We had our Suncoast Normals Got Talent showcase at the end of July, and we're looking to do one more event before the end of the year. So I'm pretty excited to see all the great things that we've been able to do. And we host our regular quarterly membership meetings online right now to allow more folks to participate. But all in all, we are trending in the right direction in Florida. What we're missing is you, the people. We need you to join. We need you to become members. We need your people power and your voices added to our own so we can push this over the top and get legalization over and done with.
And we are going to have a lobby day with Normal in Tallahassee, so your voices can be heard going face to face, toe to toe, nose to nose with our legislators. We don't point any fingers at them because you could get arrested.
And at least keep in touch with us. A good way to keep in touch with us is just following us on social media.
If you want to bribe our legislators, be sure to bring at least a 5 spot. No, I'm kidding.
We're at Suncoast Normal, NORML. You can see us at our website, suncoastnormal.org. Or if you're watching us, you can listen to us. You can download the rotation on Pandora, SoundCloud, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iTunes. And if you're listening to us, you can watch us. You can watch us live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.
And remember.
And our website. .org /live.
There you go. And remember, if you smoke the devil's lettuce, I'll see you in health.
There you go.